What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Travis Hearn Podcast. And we are in the middle of a collection that is geared around the fire is for you in my book release. And the whole idea is just interviewing and hanging out and podcasting great humans that they've been through really tough stuff in life and gone through their own series of fires. And so I'm here today with a great friend and also an Impact Church member, someone who has become close to my wife and I, her husband, and her name is Candy Valentino Bompiano, really, because she just got married. But Candy, I'm so glad to have you here today at the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's go. So I just want to get into this and talk about, fires that you've been through and get to that. But before we do that, and obviously you're a banger dude. Like you're a world changer. Not just an author, but a speaker, a business woman, and just crushing it. And I feel like everything you put your hand to, it just turns to gold. And I don't know what the secret sauce is for that, but I'm gonna find out because I'm gonna have you tell all of us. But I think it'd be cool to just start with just background, who you are. Tell us a little bit a bio of Candy.
So where to begin? A lot of the things you said, right? Like that's how people see you now. But for me, I mean, I grew up in a trailer, teenage parents. My mom cleaned houses. She was 16 when she found out she was going to have me. Had to drop out of school. My dad was a mechanic, self-taught. He has an 8th grade education, and so we really just figured out how to survive. We were on welfare and government assistance when I was first born, like most teenagers would. And life was more about that survival than it was intention. And growing up in poverty, obviously there's a lot of things that can happen. So suffered a lot of sexual abuse as a child and just tried to figure things out in life. I always say that a lot of what happened to me, so many people listening have stories far, far worse than that. But yet somehow you're able to get through it. It's kind of like your book, The Fire is For You. It's always like sometimes that pain when you're in the middle of it is so challenging to feel it, but somehow that's going to guide you closer towards your purpose. And so for me, growing up in poverty, growing up, single, only child, teenage parents, basically just tried to have to figure out life a lot. So often we are coached and guided by our parents and by our environment, and sometimes we just have to figure it out. And that's literally been my journey of just being able to figure it out. And obviously there's a lot of things that happened throughout there that kind of led me to here, but that's kind of like the beginning of it.
So where did you grow up?
Outside of Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, okay.
Yeah. But small town, smaller than 2,000 people.
Really small town.
Really small.
Is that a town?
There was more cows than people.
That qualifies as a town. So I'm curious about this because we share this in common where our moms were 16 when they had us because my mother was 16 as well. How do you feel that that shaped who you are today? Or like, I don't know. I feel like there's maybe two ways this goes. You take the typical mom who's 16 that had a child living in trailers, us two, and then like either that child ends up a wreck, or they there's something that there's something it could be even two kids in the same house, and one still kind of goes this way, and the other seems to use that to drive them, and I just wonder for you how much of that shapes who you are today, growing up in poverty.
I think it shapes everything. I think that for me, I was 15 years old. I was in my school cafeteria, and it was the very first time I had read a statistic that being from teenage parents, sexually abused as a child, like all of the things that happen, that I had an 87% chance to repeat that pattern.
Wow.
And I remember thinking in that moment, like, wow, 87% chance to duplicate that. But what about the 13? Like, what did the 13% do differently? Like, who did they talk to? What did they read? What did they put themselves into? What decisions did they make? What behaviors did they create in order to become part of the 13%? And so I started to really look at that to say, I have a greater chance of repeating this, but if someone is in that 13%, why can't I too? And so I really started investing in personal development, reading books, getting cassette tapes on personal power. And it was the first time also shortly after that I heard someone say that you are not a product of your circumstance, that you're a product of your decisions and you can change those at any point. And I remember thinking, okay, that resonated in some point, like in some level. And also throughout this time, like my parents, I feel like, everyone's doing the best they can with what they've got. And I think my parents did that. I think they did the best they could with what they had. They got involved in a church when I was really young. And you would think on the outside that was a really great decision, but it wasn't, the best church. It wasn't the best environment. It was, you hear stories where people were kind of turned off from church for a while. That was actually me for a really long time because of what I experienced inside of that little kind of cult-like school and with that pastor and just kind of how it was led. And so I think that they made the best decisions to do that sort of stuff. But there was this ongoing feeling inside of me that if someone could be part of that 13%, I can too. And I think it's important in life that until we have proof of our own ability, we have to lean on the proof that other people have done it. And I was just naive enough to try to read, to learn, and courageous enough to start. And I think that's what it really takes to become, somebody in the family has to be the one. Like someone has to be the first one that changes the trajectory. And I think that with that comes great responsibility. But I think God instills that in us along the way.
Yeah. What about, like, talk to me about, I'm just thinking, like, anybody listening or watching right now, there's probably a large amount of people who their mom or dad, they were teenagers when they were born as well. Or there's a teenage mom right now that's pregnant that's listening to this. I think that 13% is interesting because that would seem right to me in that scenario. What were your parents like? Are they around today? Do you have a relationship with them? Were they, how old was your father? Is he married to your mother that had you, or are they separated? Are they remarried? Do you have siblings? Like what really? I'm trying to dig in to find out, like, really who and how did you get shaped? Because you're incredibly driven. You're incredibly successful. You're an author of I don't know how many books. This one's a Wall Street Journal bestseller, the 9% Edge, and you're talking about teaching people how to make more money, earn revenue, and have revenue streams and things like that. Like, that doesn't come out of some kid who grew up in a trailer with the 16-year-old mom. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's such a rare story. But what about your family life?
So my parents originally were going to be getting divorced when I was 4. My mom had made some pretty bad decisions. I remember being in this really, like, dirty house. Just felt very unsafe. I remember there was a lot of smoke around. Obviously, at that age, I didn't realize that she was having an affair with someone. And I remember looking out the door of that place and seeing my dad's old car come down the dirt driveway and just feeling like, Dad's here, like being so excited. And later learned that was like a drug house and a lot of things were kind of going on. And so, he grabbed me and took me. And that was the first time that they were going to get divorced. Now, obviously, I didn't know that at the time and didn't know until years later. But my dad at that point, remember, that's the early 80s. So at that point, my dad was like, men just didn't get custody. And he had made a decision, even though he had divorce papers drawn, that I was going to be in and out of his life. He probably would see me every other weekend. And who knows who my mom would have in and out of my life. So he made a decision to stay when I was 4 years old. Wow. Now, obviously, that didn't fix their marriage, right? Like, still very, not a very loving environment. Still to this day, they're just not very loving type of people, like huggy. Everyone's kind of different, and that's okay. But their relationship was more also about survival, like just trying to get through it. And I remember thinking along the way, there were multiple other things that had kind of happened. There was other affairs and there were other issues and things like that. And remembering, them having problems and going to be getting divorced along the way. I think that somewhere when I was 11, my mom was doing something with one of the deacons in the church. And so, like, that family had to move and just, all kinds of stuff like that. And so being able to kind of see the struggles that they had, my dad buried himself in work. Obviously, my mom then was just trying to figure it out too. And I kind of grew up myself, basically, only child. A lot of the stuff with my dad's business, I remember he would come to me and like ask me like, hey, can you help me spell this? Or can you do this? Or just like a lot of that stuff because he didn't have that great education. For me, that kind of stuff, I loved reading. I loved vocabulary. I loved grammar. And I just got really hooked into realizing that we can develop ourselves. Like the circumstance, the background, the family, the environment that you grew up in shapes you. And you still get to choose. And so for me, that was like, I can't control any of that stuff. I can't fix anything that happened, but I get to choose what I do next.
Yes.
Like that was where the power came from. And I just got addicted to the fact that I get to decide. Like you might have done this and this might have happened, but I'm going to decide what's next. And that's when I started to pull my power back and be able to say, like, I get to do whatever I want in this life instead of because of, and that's not going to shape my reality. And for me, being an only child, not having that environment where someone was shaping you and coaching you and guiding you and giving you wisdom, I had to turn inward. So a lot of the times I always just thought it was like an instinct or an invisible friend that I had. But I would always talk to, now that I know, I would talk to God. I would ask those questions. I would get quiet. I felt like I always had this guidance through my life, even though it was internal and not external. And so to me, I think when you don't have the noise of the world guiding you all the time, you have to go inside and dig deep and develop that relationship and realize that you are maybe all that you have in that moment, but that's okay. Like that might be just all that you need so that you can find a relationship with Christ, with God, in order to pull you into the direction that you need to go.
That's so good. You remind me. I don't even know if this is true, but I saw this thing the other day, somewhere on social media. But it said out of the last 51 NFL Super Bowl quarterbacks, there's been no fatherless quarterbacks that have won a Super Bowl in the last 51 Super Bowls.
Wow.
Right? I mean, and I think for me, that really resonates because, you know, I was 5 or something, 6 when my parents split up. And then my dad became like a visitation. You know, it was like you saw him when you saw him. But then when I had my children, it was like, you know, because I missed out on so many things. I mean, we didn't go on a family vacation or anything. Like we didn't, you know. So like when you get old enough or ready enough to like build your own life, it's like, man, I want to give my kids these things that I felt like maybe I didn't get or didn't have, and a lot of that's just opportunity. A lot of it's vacations, but it's time, right? It's spending time. And but thinking about that quarterback statement, I was thinking like, man, that's the power of a parent. That's the power of a father being in a child's life, being in the mix. And then I feel like we're very similar in that regard too, because I had to figure stuff out. You know, I love teaching my son how to do stuff, but like I had to figure out stuff, like all of it, you know? Yeah.
But that's what makes it, like, to me. So if there's a person watching or listening now and they're like, yeah, that's me. Like I have to figure out everything on my own. But that's such a gift.
Great gift.
Like for me, like people go, how'd you start a business at 19? And how'd you start investing? And how'd you write this book? And it's because I had to do all this other stuff. And if that didn't destroy me, if that didn't cripple me, if that didn't trip me up, you think building a business or creating some money is hard? Like that's nothing when you pull yourself out of poverty and you pull yourself and recover and heal from abuse and trauma. Like that's nothing. And so I think when we rob people, when we rob our kids, when we're robbed of the ability to struggle, we remove the gift that we need in order to create any life that we want. Yeah. And so I feel like that is such a gift. And now obviously it doesn't make it easy in the moment, but when you're on the other side of it, I look back and say, that's why I can walk into any room and not really be stressed because I did all that other stuff to get here. And I think anyone, if you don't mind, I wanted to share something with everyone watching or listening. If you're getting hit like in the heart with this and you're like, yeah, but, right? We all but our life. Like, okay, yeah, they did it. But I want you to take a sheet of paper right now. I call it your proof paper. Take a sheet of paper after we're talking, pull it out. And every single thing that you accomplished in your life that you didn't think you were going to, some obstacle that you faced that you thought was going to destroy you, the coach that said you were going to never make it, the person that said you weren't smart enough, the relationship that you clawed out of, the abuse that you overcome, write it all down. Like 6 months, 16 months, 16 years, whatever it is. And when you doubt your ability to overcome this next thing, or you think that God hasn't been through you throughout your whole life, you look at that paper and remember who you are and what you've overcome. So that when you doubt the next thing, you can actually take a look at it.
So good. Proof.
Proof paper, yeah.
Proof paper. Take out the receipts.
That's right.
Read them again. Read the receipts. I love that. That's great. I think I might do that myself, and I think it'd be good to do every now and then, maybe annually. Like,
I do it annually.
Yeah, because I think when you start doing that, you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. I forgot about all that stuff.
Yeah. And then I doubt, like I'm doubting myself. I'm doubting the ability. And really, like when we hear these things like, oh, your story, my story, like they're all God's stories.
Yeah.
Like that's really what it is. It's the story of redemption and overcoming. And sometimes we get through it in 6 months or 6 years. And sometimes people spend their whole life trying to overcome it. But when you're in the middle of it, I think you need the power to realize that you can do this. This is for you. You're going to be on the other side of it. And that's just a great visible reminder that you can.
Who are some of the, you were talking about even in your, as a young lady in books that you read, things that shaped you, mentors maybe that you've had, people that early on you went, man, I can relate to that. This is really helping me. Who are some people, what are some books that shaped you?
So when I was 15, it was probably the first big book that shaped me. And I was, in that little trailer, I was in the front, you know how the trailers are, you walk in and you're like, boom, in the front room.
Yes.
And then the kitchen's off to the side and then you got a small little hallway and it's like room 1, room 2, shared bathroom.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
Yeah.
And so I was in that front room on this couch. And I think it was right around when the remotes first came out. So I remember kind of clicking through the channels. And it was 3 a.m. All it was infomercials. This was the 90s at this point. And I just saw someone come on this infomercial. And he was sitting in this beautiful place, which I thought was his house, not realizing it was a resort, with all these palm trees and this pool behind him. And he's saying, like, you can change your life in an instant. And, don't buy what other people are telling you. And it just resonated with me. And these cassette tapes were like $600. And I had a few like businesses. I had a golf ball business and babysitting. So I had a bunch of money, but I didn't have a credit card.
At 15.
I started when I was 8, yeah. So I had some money, but I didn't have a credit card. And you needed a credit card to dial in to actually, make the order. And so I said to my dad, I said, Dad, look, I want to buy these cassette tapes, $600. Here's the money, but I need your credit card. And he said, look, you're going to give that guy your money and he's going to be a millionaire. And you're going to be in the same position that you're in right now. And I remember thinking, watch me. So instead, that was one of those moments. And I think everyone has moments like that where someone is trying to tell you who you are or what you're capable of. And you have the choice to believe it or to say, watch me. Even well-intended people, like my dad didn't mean to say that or try to put limitations on me, right? It was protection. Most of the people in our life that say that stuff are trying to protect us from something because of their experience. Maybe they were taken advantage of or somebody took money from them. But for me, I felt resonated enough that when we were in Sears the next day buying some tools, I had seen Discover card applications on the desk because this was old school, pre-internet. And so I took one. And I fraudulently filled it out. I don't recommend anybody do this. Fraudulently filled it out, sent it in, and lo and behold, Discover gave a 15-year-old a credit card.
Wow.
So I called that number, put that order in, paid that credit card off, and started sitting and listening to these tapes. Lo and behold, turns out to be Tony Robbins.
Wow.
So I listened to Tony Robbins' Personal Power, cover to cover, front to back, and he talked about books. And so I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was reading Think and Grow Rich. I was putting quotes all over my little, desk inside of my room just to remember all of that stuff.
As a teenage girl.
As a teenage girl. Because again, it was like, okay, 13%. That was something that resonated to me. If I do the same things, if I do this exact same scenario that I am seeing play out in all of these other people's lives, I have a greater chance to do that. So let me do the wildest, craziest stuff that doesn't make sense to anyone, because I think that's what it's going to take to be part of the 13%.
Yeah.
And so then I was just, Barnes and Noble. When I had some money, I'd go in and I'd buy books and I would just sit and read books. I read Smart Women Finish Rich. I didn't know any women that were rich. I grabbed a book from Mary Kay Ash. Didn't know who she was at the time. Turns out to be one of the greatest female entrepreneurs that ever lived. So all of these things I was just absorbing and digesting and then implementing, because the ideas are never going to change our life. It's what we do with it, right? It's this inspiration isn't going to help anyone if they don't do something with it. So then I just started implementing, and one after another, next step. And lo and behold, when you play the long game, eventually it compounds and you can accomplish more than you can even imagine.
Yeah. I like that. Watch me. But I love that. Watch me. Prove them wrong.
Yeah.
Or prove them right, whichever. Prove them wrong. Watch me.
But at least you tried. Even if I proved them right, at least I tried.
Yeah.
So to me, if you don't get caught up in the ego of what are people going to think, or what if I fail? Great. If you fail, that's one step closer to what it is that you're going to accomplish. So to me, I would rather try, fail, prove someone right, and then just get up and go again and try again, because I know that over time, it's kind of like the great people. It's even the greatest baseball players are striking out or missing 70% of the time.
Yeah.
The odds are still in your favor if you keep getting up to the plate.
Yeah. What about though, before I get to that question, you had a golf ball business.
Yes.
I got to hear about that. Okay. I got to know. I got to know.
Interestingly enough, right? So there's our trailer, a couple other small, houses, if you can call them, around. And there was a farm. And this farm eventually got sold. And a golf course came in and ripped everything down, took out all the farm and put in a golf course. And so imagine all these small little, places and trailers around, and then there's a golf course. Well, golfers would hit their balls. My dad was never a golfer. I never watched a football game in my life till I was an adult. Sports were not a thing because we were just trying to survive, right? Yeah. So we were working constantly. Well, these golfers would hit their balls. They would come in the yard, and on Saturdays I had to mow the grass. So my dad always said, go clean all the golf balls up, because if you hit one, it could break a window. So I would go out every day, clean up all the golf balls. And then was okay, he's people are coming into the yard, try to get those back. He's you might be able to sell them back. And I was all right. So I got some egg cartons, saved them throughout the week, sat a little table up on the side of where our property was and the golf course started, and just sold golf balls back to them. And I realized that I would go through all my Titleist and all my Callaways, and the Wilsons would still be left. And I remember thinking, man, nobody wants these. Let me just take the price up of these other ones. So I learned supply and demand, because nobody wants to buy Wilsons and everyone wants to buy Titleist.
Yeah.
So I sold those golf balls every Saturday back to the golfers. Instead of them coming back in the yard to take them for free, which is what they wanted, I would sell them back. Be sorry, I can't get your ball, but I can sell you a whole dozen.
At 15?
Oh, no, I was probably 12 at that time.
At 12?
Yeah.
You go, man. That's crazy. That's awesome. Yeah. That's great. Take advantage of the situation, the area, the territory, what's going on. So what I was going to ask before that, because you mentioned Tony Robbins, you mentioned books, you mentioned, cassette tapes. And by the way, if you're under 30, cassette tapes, that isn't it weird how
so weird.
How fast time is? Because I remember 8-track tapes, and of course records, but vinyls, but 8-track, and then cassette tapes, and then CDs, and then Napster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then eventually the Metallica lawsuit and Napster and all that. And then eventually it was Apple Music and Spotify, and what a different world we live in today.
Yeah.
I used to buy the tape. My first church job was as a volunteer. I was the tape ministry director.
Oh
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So it was my pastor would preach these sermons, and they'd have the master on a cassette tape. But they were just 500 of them just in a big box,
And then you would sit, did they sell them at the back of the church?
Yeah.
You would have
a couple
them
bucks.
All, oh, yeah.
So I had this display built, and, had them all titled and organized. And that was my first ministry position.
Oh my God.
Cassette tapes. The tape
Love
ministry. That's what it was called, the tape ministry. That's crazy.
Start that at Impact.
Yeah.
Bring it back.
We should start that at Impact. Remember, you could put tape over the cassette, and then you could record onto them.
Exactly.
How do we figure this stuff out? There was no Google.
We figured it out.
There's no internet. There's no nothing, man. We figured some stuff out. But what I was going to ask is, if there's a 16-year-old girl right now, 12-year-old, 18-year-old, 20-year-old, just a young lady who they go, man, who do I listen to? Who should I listen to? What are, obviously, other than Candy, which you should, but like who else is out there that you would go, man, I think this person, and obviously they're not endorsements. It's just like thoughts in the space.
So there's, I think, a lot of great people that do really well. And I think that there's a lot of proven people that have, because it's easy to be successful in anything short period. It's really hard to sustain success. And so I think obviously Tony is great. I can't recommend him enough. I've interviewed him. He's, pretty true person. I think he's great.
Which that's pretty cool.
It is really cool. Totally.
You got to interview him and everything. Yeah.
Got to tell him about the cassette tapes.
That's
and
cool.
Everything.
Yeah.
And he's like, any event you ever want to come to, he's like, let me know. So yeah, it was really cool. But he's really good. And I always say, rather than doing a bunch of things and getting all of this like shiny object syndrome, just pick like one or two. Just, one or two. And I also think that people should also listen to, because all humans are faulted, even though we're doing our best. I think you should also dial into a church, and I know that was hard for me in the beginning because I had so much pain with church. I walked away from it for almost 10 years. But I think that being able to do that too, making sure that you're not being led by people that are more of the world, because if you allow the world to define you, you're going to give it permission to destroy you. And I think that it's really important to make sure that you're listening to people that have a long-term plan that's aligned with yours, which is going to heaven and helping other people get there.
Yeah. Wow. I wrote that in my notes because I wanted to come back to that. So let's just get into it. Church hurt is a real thing. And I actually asked, I forget when it was, but it was within the last 2 weeks. I don't know if I did it our membership class or if I did it in a church service, but I asked, hey, I have a question in one of our services. I said, How many of you have been church hurt? And I mean, if there was, however many adults were sitting in there, it had to have been 50%. It had to have been 50% of the adults in this church that were like, yeah. And I'm a pastor and I'm like, yeah, me too. I mean, I have too.
Yeah.
I've been hurt, but I was thinking about that because isn't it interesting how, quite frankly, poor the church has been to a large degree. Not every church. Obviously, there's incredible churches, incredible preachers, pastors, men of God, women of God. It's probably a small percentage, but of things that have happened or bad ones or bad situations or whatever. But the ones that they have literally been church hurt, like yourself. I was thinking, it's amazing that the church keeps growing and rolling like a freight train anyway. And that's like a powerful testimony to God. Because like humans fail, but yet the church is bigger than it's ever been in the history of the world.
Right.
And then humans fail again, and the church just keeps growing, and God keeps doing what God does in spite of human flaws and in humanity and failures and mistakes and everything. It's incredible.
It really is. And I think that's the thing for people to remember is when that happens to you, it's to remember that isn't of God, right? Like the mistakes that the men, obviously women too, but humans make inside of the church is not of God. It's the opposite. Yeah. And so I think that when we remember that, okay, you're not going to want to maybe surround yourself with those same people in that church, but you don't want to turn your back on God because maybe he's working through them in a certain way and they're just failing publicly. Like imagine when, I just think of like the difference between people who run a church, lead a church, pastors, like the amount of pressure that you, whether consciously or unconsciously carry because you don't have the ability to fail, really. Like we all get to fail and sin in private. Yeah. And I think that when there's this unrealistic expectation that pastors or people that work at the church, of the church, whatever, now all of a sudden they don't have the ability to fail. Like obviously you want people that are of integrity, but they're also through their same journey at some point. Yeah, so who knows where you're meeting them in their journey. So I think that's where we have grace for people. If God had grace for us, like we need to extend that grace to other people. Doesn't mean that you keep them front row seat of your life or that you allow them to lead you, but you can have grace for them, understand that that's not of God and find a church, find a family that is more of God. Yeah. Yeah,
that's so good. The church hurt almost kept me out of the ministry. Like I was hurt by a pastor, and just in my opinion, treated, unfairly. That was something that was a hard thing for me to go through. But thank God, His grace, as the word says, is sufficient. And I didn't give up on God, and I didn't give up on the church. But like you said, I didn't stay at that church,
right?
And had to find a different one that I could grow in, and one that I trust. I always tell our people at our church family at Impact Church, I'm like, hey, listen, our church isn't for everybody, but I hope you find one that you love and like dig in, go all in. Yeah. And if you're in a church today and you don't feel like I can go all in for whatever reason, like, hey, maybe find one that you can. Like the church needs us. God needs us. He needs the body of Christ to be the body of Christ. And I think one of the tactics that the enemy tries to use is church hurt. It's like, well, I love God, but I don't go to church, It's like, I love my wife, but we don't live together, ever. We never see each other. But I love her. It's kind of the same concept because it's built on relationship.
Yeah.
But I have some more things I wrote down here that I wanted to circle back to. A business at 19. What was that business?
So the very first business, let's go back a hot second. So I wanted to go to college.
Okay.
I'm going to be the first person in my family to go to college because that to me was also part of that 13%. So here's how interesting that happens, right? I'm like going to do it, get great scores on the ACT, get a scholarship to my dream school. Going to go to criminology, wanted to be in the FBI. That was what I wanted to do, right? Because when you have a lot of things, again, that are out of your control, what do you want to do? You want to control the situation. Yeah. You want to, very just. You want to put bad guys away. You want to make sure that there is justice in the world. So that's what I wanted to do, right? And it was really, I just kind of was like, well, okay, I'm going to do this. The starting salary is $38,000. And I just started looking at what these decisions would lead to. And I think oftentimes instead what we do is we just make a knee-jerk decision, and then we're trying to live and evaluate the consequence. And I think that we could have much better lives if we did the analysis on the decision first and didn't actually make the decision, went to the party, did the drugs, got whatever those are, and now we're trying to deal with the consequence. What if we just switch that a little bit and we take some time to pause before the decision? So I really just started to intentionally plan out what that could look like. And I realized that's not going to get me where I want. So I actually walked away from an academic scholarship, took a summer to just work and just make a bunch of money and figure out what I wanted to do. And it was through that summer after I graduated that I went to New York. When I was in New York, I went into this, someone had got me a gift certificate to get a massage. And so I went and got a massage in New York. And I'm like, what are these things? Like, they don't have these things with massages and like nothing like that existed. And I just, for whatever reason, was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to build a spa. I don't even know what that means, but I'm going to bring it to this area and be the first. So crazy dream, no money. And back in the day, the Small Business Association was going around and actually trying to find women entrepreneurs to give funding to, because this was in the 90s. If you want to think about it, it was only like the late 80s that women were even allowed to get a bank account without a man's signature. So businesses for women, like business bank loans for women, was unheard of.
Wow.
Up until 1987, you had to have a man's signature to get a loan, to get a bank account, to get a credit, like all of that stuff. So the SBA made this initiative. And so I went to a college, my little briefcase, black suit, pitched my idea and how much money, and lo and behold, they gave me a loan.
Wow.
So that was really the start of starting a spa, brick and mortar. And then really it was from that too, like that wasn't just a business, because that to me also, those like the women that I got to interact with, like when I talk about proof, there is proof for everything that you want to do. Like I knew that I wanted to be different than the people that were around me, but I didn't have access to those people. There weren't podcasts like this. There weren't YouTube channels. So what I did was these women that came in, I would pay attention to how they dressed, how they spoke, how they made me feel, how people interacted with them. And we're talking successful business women, plus also wives and moms of like doctors and attorneys and all this stuff. And I remember thinking, wow, like I want to make someone feel like that around me. I want to speak life into someone like that woman does. I want to dress and own a room like that. And I literally just started adopting these little parts of their personalities. And that's why I always say, like, I'm built. This is not how I was wired. This is not how I was born. Like, I built this because I felt that that's what I needed to do in order to stack the odds in my favor, not on the other side of that 87%. And so there's a cautionary tale in that too, because if you're around the wrong people and you're not intentional about who you're around, you will also adopt little parts of that environment. And now you're going to have to fight not against just your conditioning, but you got to fight against your conditioning and your environment. To me, I didn't want to take that risk. So I was super intentional about who I was around, what I wanted to adopt, and really just tried to pay attention to that every time I was in that environment.
Man, that's incredible. What about really that's just such a good nugget right there, talking about your environment, the people, I say it like this, it's like the soil that you're planted in.
Yeah.
And it's like it shapes you.
Mm-hmm.
It does, it shapes you. And sometimes people feel like they can't get out of that soil, like the trailer. Right? So, because I hear that all the time, like, well, if you only knew where I came from, if you only knew my upbringing, if you only knew, and I don't want to, you don't want to come across prideful or whatever, because it's by God's grace, but like I want to go, I did too, like me too. But how would somebody, because think about, we get planted in a bad relationship, we get planted into a bad marriage, we get planted into a marriage and I don't know, the husband's abusive or whatever it is, but I think a lot of times people feel stuck and like they can't get out of those bad associations. What would you speak to that on how do you get out? Do I get out? What would be a way out?
Well, first, I always think it's important to know why you think that. And to me, that's a lie of the enemy. So if you're sitting here and you're hearing this or you're watching this and you're thinking, but I can't get out, I'm in this bad relationship, I grew up this way, my family was this way. That is a lie that is perpetuating so that you stay stuck right where you are. Because if you get on the other side of this and you have a story to tell and you're going to do amazing things,
wow,
I think that is what's keeping you there. And when you have that understanding and the realization that that is why I'm here, and I get to choose. You didn't have the information to know that you didn't need to make the decisions that got you there. Or maybe somebody was completely just lying to you and you thought they were a great person. I get it. I'm certainly not. You said I was, married, but I was married and divorced before. It was a horrible relationship. And so I get it. I know I stayed so much longer than I ever thought I would. And I get that. And I know that but it's at some point, the pain of the unknown will be not as bad as the pain of what is. And until you have that moment, you will stay stuck in whatever mess that you're in. You will have shame. And that shame normally comes from because you ignored the little nudges along the way that told you, don't go that way.
Wow.
Turn away. Don't do it. But instead, you tried to rationalize your instinct. Anytime I have rationalized taken my intellect to override my instinct or this nudge I feel God's given me, it has led me to so much pain. And so we rationalize our way from the path that we're supposed to be on in hopes that we somehow know better. But I think that is really where it's going to come from.
I'm fascinated by that because that's great. It's so good. And just advice and direction. I was thinking about one of the reasons I was able to get out, I guess, if you will, is just because my mom was young. She had me young. Same. She worked 4 jobs most of my childhood. I mean, see if I can remember all of them. She worked for Safeway as a cake decorator. She had a little side hustle on her own, a business of decorating cakes. And then she cleaned houses on the weekends. And then she worked as a waitress early mornings, 5 a.m. to noon or something. I don't know what it was, but it was really early morning. And that was like her life all the time. So I think for me, I had a model in front of me. We may not have money, but I had a model, a woman of God who loved Jesus, who worked hard, was not afraid of work. Like she worked and worked and worked and put everybody else first. So put me first, put my sisters first. I'm the only child from my mother and father, and then my mom remarried, and then I had 2 sisters. But thinking about, my mom used to tell me, you can do anything you want to do. Anything you put your mind to, you can do it, Travis. Anything. And I know a lot of people never had a parent say that. Or they tell them the opposite. You're nobody. You're no good. You'll never amount to anything. You're just like so-and-so. You're just like your father. Just like, and so what I'm getting at is, for me, I think a large part of my psyche was the power of words. And we know scripture talks about that our words have the power of life and death. Who gave you those words?
So I heard a saying when I was 15 that even though you might not have the mom that you want, you got the mom that you need. And I remember feeling that, like, in spite of having the mom that you have or the dad that you have, whoever's listening, you can still be the man that you need, the woman that you need to be. Sometimes we are the one. Sometimes we're the one that is supposed to go against it all, that is going to take it all, that is going to handle it all, and is going to change the trajectory for your lineage forever. And I think that if you're listening and you're like, you know what, PT, I didn't have that. My mom wasn't like that. I get it. But you can still be, like, in order to become the woman that I am right now, I had to have the mom that I did.
Wow.
I had to. And when I look back and I think, sure, it would be so nice if we had a loving relationship and, you know, I called on her, or I could trust to talk to her about stuff. Like, that would be wonderful. But if I had all of that, I wouldn't be who I am today. You can't have both. And I think what happens is when we're stuck in the worry, in the shame, in the woe is me, we forget who we can become. Like, if she would have been everything I needed, I wouldn't be so independent. I wouldn't be so like, oh yeah, I can do that. I'll figure this out. I'll do whatever. Like, figure out how to cook when I'm a kid because you're not having food cooked for you. Sure. Like, we can figure this out, right? So I think anyone listening, just remember that. If you had the parent that you always wanted, you would not be the person that you are today. And for me, because of being on the other side of that, I can look back with kinder eyes, with loving eyes, with understanding that she was 16. She didn't know what the heck. Like, you know, like, she's just worried about ninth grade homework at the time. And now you're trying to figure out how to be a mom and didn't have a great representation of that herself. So now you have compassion for that person. And I think that's when you really can heal and you get on the other side of it, you have such compassion for those people. And you also realize that in order to be the one, you can't have an easy journey. The easy journey, the non-struggle, you don't have the ability to claw out, to climb out, to overcome, to help other people. So to me, I think it's a gift.
Wow. That is a gift. It is a gift. It is a gift. You as you're talking, I can see my memory cycles. Like, I'm watching my childhood movie when you're talking about, like, certain things. And I'm thinking like we had a pecan tree. I don't know, you say pecan or pecan? What do you say? What's Pittsburgh say?
Pecans.
Pecans?
I think so.
I don't know if it's pecans
or pecans.
Or pecans. Or
pecans.
I don't know what they are, but anyway, those things.
They're good.
We had a pecan tree, and they're good. And but you know, I need some new sneakers for basketball. Like, my buddies all had, you know, most of my buddies had decent amount of money. Parents were married, you know. So I'd collect pecans and put them in and brown bag those suckers and put $5 with a marker on the outside of the brown bag, and I'd just go up and down my street.
There you go. That's your golf balls.
Yeah, that's my golf balls, and I'd sell pecans, man. It's like,
you got it done.
They're free, they drop.
That's right.
My responsibility is to clean them up. Hey, I wonder if I could get some new Nikes out of this deal for basketball, you know? So as I hear you talking about things, I'm like, yeah, man, we wouldn't be who we are if we didn't have the upbringing, the childhood, the parents, the situation, even the geographical, you know, locations, and thinking about you being you said you're the only child, like. And I think I relate to that, even though I have siblings, half siblings on both sides, but like, I was 10 before I had one. So really I was an only child. But when you're an only child, you know, like my wife grew up with sisters and stuff like that. But like, when we have one child, she's like, well, we need another one, you know, so they can grow up together. You know, we have 3 now, but same with our dogs.
Yeah.
We can't just have one, we got to have 2.
Yeah.
Because they need each other, you know.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, well, I didn't need anything.
Exactly.
She kind of jokes. She's like, I think you did. You maybe just didn't know you did. But like that part to me was also a gift. Like, because you don't have to be entertained. Like, you just go. Like, let's just rock, man. Like, let's here's my goals, here's my dreams. I don't want to be like this forever. I don't want to live like this forever. I want to give my kids, generational blessings instead of curses. I don't want to have a child at 16 years old. What you said about the repeat, what'd you say? 87% chance of repeating. My mom's mom had my mom when my mom was a teenager. I mean, when her mom was a teenager. And then, my sisters had their kids when they were teenagers. Yeah. Like, it's that old song, Will the Circle Be Unbroken? You ever heard that song?
Yeah.
And it's like, it feels like that so many times, but it can be.
It can be.
It can be broken.
But it's going to require you to show up in a way that you will not know what to do. You'll be scared to death. You will question your ability. You'll question your worth. And that's why I think it's so important to always remember how God sees you.
Yeah.
Find your worth through how he sees you, because the world will question your worth. I was in relationships that would weaponize that against me. I remember being with someone that was supposed to be this, person that takes care of you and loves you, and would weaponize the fact that I came from poverty, that I was abused as a child, like literally talk about it in such disgusting ways. So if you allow people to speak that onto you, you will take that as part of your existence. You have to be able to dial down and say, but that's not what God says about me. God says I'm his daughter, that I'm capable, that I can do this. And if you couldn't, you wouldn't have been given it. And so to me, I just kept thinking, like, I always envisioned like the shoulders. Like, I would just always envision these like stones on my shoulders, that the only reason I have them is because I have the ability to carry them. And that's, again, when you get your power back. Like, there is no power in sitting, oh my gosh, these stones are on me, I'm in this you can't change that. And so to me, I would rather face it, have radical acceptance of whether I participated in it or whatever happened to me, and then the decision of what do I need to do on the other side to get out of this, because there are people that suffered far, far worse that actually were more successful with less.
Yeah.
So why not you? Like, instead of thinking like, oh, why me? Why not you? Why not you? And I think that's when you really start to get that back. So for me, like, hearing, Tony Robbins, hearing and reading the words through all of these books really just spoke life. And until I could get this in my psyche where I just recite it like with no problem, I hung those words all over, sticky notes on my mirror, like all of these things, because I was told that I wasn't enough. I was told that I wasn't going to amount to anything. I was, questioning the way I looked, the way I talked, the way that I showed up in every room. I was playing small, like all of those things. So until that became me, I had to adopt the persona of someone who would do that. And then it's amazing how that eventually shifts and becomes like basically the person that you've created.
This book, this is not your first book. Is this?
It's the second of third.
47th book. If you could just describe this book in a sentence, what's the point of this book?
The point of that book is to get entrepreneurs out of their own suffering. Again, interesting, 9%. 91% of all businesses fail. 91% in their first 10 years. And to me, that's not just a business. That's a dream. That's a family.
Absolutely.
That's putting food on the table. That's employees, right? And so for me, just like the 87% and the 13, 91% of all businesses fail, but 9% do. And here's what they do. And so I lay out every single thing that they have in common. We did 17,000 entrepreneurs and 2,000 small businesses, one of the largest research projects that's ever been done.
Wow.
And was like, what do the 9% do?
Wow.
And that's what they do.
I'm reading that whole thing a few times through then. That's incredible. I mean, so when you talk about the 9%, what are just some things that they do?
Profit. The number one thing is profit. So businesses are all like, oh, gung-ho, let's get some customers. But if you don't actually get some of the profit in your business, you can't sustain. So 99.4% of the 91% that fail, the top 3 reasons: lack of revenue, lack of profit, lack of funding, all things money. So if we can fix the money piece, we can actually solve a lot of the problems. And we talk about how to do that, like how to actually establish if what you're selling in your business is actually profitable. Some people don't even know how to do that. I didn't know how to do that. I had to figure it out. So a lot of these things I had to figure out, not realizing that that's what gave me a 25-year career in business, because I was math driven. I was numbers driven, the KPIs and the metrics. And we're not taught these things in school. So anyone that's like listening, they're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what she's talking about. None of us did. Like, we all had to figure it out. Finances is like a language. And if you get dropped into France and you don't know French, you're not going to understand what they're talking about. But the only way is to start to develop that. And it's similar to what we were just talking about. Like, if someone's listening about, like, they're in a position in their life right now and they haven't taken action and they haven't taken radical acceptance of where they are and just being willing to step out, even so they don't know the next steps. If you've never done that, it is going to feel foreign. Your body is going to want to revolt, and you're going to go back to a pattern that feels comfortable, even if that pattern is abusive, toxic, traumatic, and painful, because that is what you know. So I had to very, like, intentionally, which also we talk about in the business, how to intentionally build wealth and intentionally build a business so that you can reverse engineer whatever it is that you want to create. I had to intentionally make myself super uncomfortable, because what was comfortable to me wasn't healthy. And everyone, I believe, that's going to break through something that so that they can do generational blessings and not curses, you're going to have to feel uncomfortable, and you're going to have to get really comfortable with that feeling in order to achieve anything great.
What about when you talk about uncomfortable? What would be like a real? You put legs to that. What are some thought? This is how it was uncomfortable. These are 5 things or 1 thing, whatever, what I'm talking about when I say I got to get uncomfortable.
For me, and everybody's different. For me, I have to feel like my back is up against the wall, and I will intentionally do that, because what happens when you become successful? You get comfortable. So I always, even to this point, I have to put myself into uncomfortable situations where I feel like my back is up against the wall, because I know that's where I'm going to shine. So for me, that's what it is. It will be saying yes to something that I don't think I can figure out, but it calls the highest version of myself to show up. So I will commonly say yes to things that I don't fully know how to do, but I know that this version of me is going to show up with my resilience, with my discipline, with prayer. Like, you're going to be able to have that happen. And so that's one of them.
That's great.
You're smiling.
That's what I wanted to hear right there. That's good stuff. That's really good stuff. When your back's up against the wall, it's like it's fight or flight. Like, I'm fighting.
I
had a podcast with a worship leader a few months back, and we didn't say this on the podcast. It was off record, but he's a real sweet guy. And he goes, I'm like, PT, the idea of fight or flight. And I was like, yeah. And this is a guy who's fatherless. And he goes, I'm like 98% flight in everything. And I said, I'm like 98% fight. So maybe we should hang out a little bit. Like, because we're going to figure this out, man. We got to scrap. Sometimes you got to fight, man. But also, I have a purpose statement for my life. You probably heard me say this at church, but I have this, I always say my life's purpose for Travis Hearn is that more people will go to heaven when they die and less people will go through hell while they live. That's why I exist. I'm a pastor. Like, that's what I do. If you had a life, not even in a statement, but like, why do you exist? Like, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish in life? What is your purpose in this world?
To minimize suffering. If I can suffer, if I could go through what I went through, if I could claw out of that to somehow share something, whether it's a book, a podcast, a word, a prayer, a hug, to just minimize somebody's suffering, that to me is like a life worth living. And so whether that's the animals that we rescue at the shelter, the people that we help in our program, like, how do we minimize suffering? A lot of people suffer financial pain. They suffer relational pain. They suffer the spiritual pain, like we were talking about with church hurt.
Yeah.
And so if I can minimize suffering in some way, because I know that I'm capable. It's kind of like when I first came out and started on social media. They're like, you're going to get hate. You're going to get so much judgment. And I'm like, bring it.
Yeah.
Because I know I can handle it. If they're hating on me, at least they're not attacking someone else, and someone else might not be equipped to handle it yet. I can.
Yeah.
So bring it.
Yeah.
And I think that when you get to that place in the world, that God puts something crazy or big on your heart, and you're just like, let's go. It's a yes. Let's do it. It's like nothing can stop you. It's
nothing.
I think the enemy messes with you less when you are a heck yes and figuring out the rest. So it's like the enemy's like, okay, I'm not even going to start. I'm not going to mess with her anymore, because we know that she's going to come out swinging. She's going to come out fighting. And it's almost like a welcomed, because that's where I shine. So it's like, bring it. So that, to me, I don't know if that could help someone. But I think that it's what you are dealing with right now, the suffering that you're facing, the challenges that you have, whatever decisions that you made that got you to this place, they do not define you unless you allow it. Stop allowing it to define you and start making a new decision. I mean, I've messed up so many things in my life. Like if I'd look back at the marriage that I had and the relationship that I had, and I mean, there's other decisions that I made that were, horrible decisions that I regret. But if I didn't do those things, I wouldn't have the compassion that I have for other people. I wouldn't have the heart to help. I wouldn't want to help other people that reach out to me and hear stories like this and is like, oh my gosh, that happened to me, or I never shared that with anyone and now I can talk about it. Like, that's what this is all about.
So what you're saying is the fire is for you.
It is. It's such a great title because it truly is. It's like the fire is for you. The pain is part of the purpose. Like however you want to craft it.
Yeah.
Like, and I get that it sucks when you're in it, right? The fire is still painful and hot when you're in it. But if you can just have a fraction of hope, fraction, just keep that hope alive and just know that when you're on the other side of this, and the other thing I'll share, the bigger the fire, the bigger that breakthrough is going to be. Every mountain I've climbed that has been a climb, oh my gosh, on the other side of it, it has been like better than I could even think.
Come on.
But if you don't go all, if you don't trust and have faith and go all in and do your part and show up and have decisions and have the discipline to keep moving forward, you're never going to know. You're going to lay in this lake of mediocrity because you haven't shown up to go to the game. Like, put on the jersey and get in. Like, get in the game. And I think that we can do that in so many aspects of our life. But the fire is definitely for you.
You maybe have already talked about this, but what is probably the greatest fire you think you've ever been through?
Well, it's interesting. I would probably think that getting out of my childhood would have been, but like it feels so like long ago. Yeah. That was definitely one. Getting out of a really abusive relationship was really hard on many levels because it kind of shook my identity. Like, why would I make that decision? Why would I stay? Like questioning myself so much in that process. That was definitely one of the bigger ones, and then all of the bad things that came along with that relationship. And like, I'll just share, like, I was in my early 20s, and I don't know if we're going to keep this.
It's okay.
Okay. But probably one of the greatest regrets, because we can have challenges that we can get out of, but there are some things that we do in life that we can't fix and we can't change. And so for me, being in a not so great relationship, I ended up pregnant when I was in my early 20s. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do it. Everything I set out to do is going to go away. And I'm going to be that young parent. I'm not going to be able to have the life that I want. I'm not going to be able to do everything that I want to do. And I remember, telling the person that I was with, I was like, I don't know that we can do this. I don't think this is right. And because I didn't get out of that relationship when I did, I made a lot of bad decisions along the way. And again, it was why I say like overriding that instinct for the intellect, and I found myself in really bad situations through that and not making the right decisions. That's something I can't go back and fix. It is also the very thing that got me back to God.
Yeah.
Because I was away from the time I was 18 and I graduated from that little school and said, I will never step foot in another church. For 10 years, I never did, until a woman that worked for me, who was like a phenomenal employee, kept asking me to go back to church. And finally I thought, if I don't go back to church with this lady, she's probably going to quit. And she's really great. So I remember finally she wore me down and I was like, okay, fine, I'll go. And I remember texting my friend when I went in there and I said, I'm about to go into church, look for fire alarms. It's like this place might burn down. And she was like, all right. And I remember sitting in there for the first time, and it was a big worship, which I wasn't used to. And, the drums and the guitar. And I remember looking back behind me, and I was like, It's 45 minutes and this guy hasn't even started to preach yet. 45-minute worship, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, when am I going to get out of here? And I couldn't wait till I was done. Next day, she asked, are you going to come back next week? Are you going to come back this week? Well, I can't tell her. This went way too long.
Yeah.
This is not my jam. Like, these people were singing and raising hands and all this stuff. But somehow I went back. And the third time that I went, she got me back again. For somehow it didn't feel quite as long. And there was a guest pastor. And this guest pastor reminds me of you, Pastor Rick. He was cool. He had some tats. He was dressed really cool. And I remember thinking, well, this is different. And he somehow spoke to my heart. And they were doing something that day for Planned Parenthood, where they were doing some ritual where, they were talking about the statistics of teenage parents and women that have had abortions and women that have gone through things in life. And they just said, we won't judge, we won't talk, but if anyone wants to, we have these little crosses and everyone in the church is going to do this so that we don't single anybody out. And they had these little teeny tiny crosses. And you went out into the front yard and you just put it in. And so I was like, all right, well, I certainly don't want to stand out, right? Certainly don't want judgment. So I'm just going to do it with what everybody else did. And I took the little cross and I went out into the yard and I put it in the ground and I just broke and I just wept and cried and thought, oh my gosh, I can never go back in there because the thing I'm the most shameful of, that I'm most regret, these people are going to know and they're going to judge me and they're going to think I'm so awful. And just as I was thinking all of that, I felt these arms wrap around me. And it was the pastor's wife. And she just hugged me. And I just cried and cried. And she never said a word. And we walked in and the pastor hugged me and just said, we love you. God loves you. And the very thing that I was so fractured, that I was so shameful of, that I felt so much regret for, was the very thing that God brought me back and said, I still love you. You're still worthy. And it's okay. And from that moment on, I just started to develop another relationship. And that's why I think that the fire really is for you. Because if that wouldn't have happened, I don't know that I would have come back. I don't know that I would have come back to God. But it was that one thing that was just so regretful and so shameful that opened me up to a new relationship with him, a healthy one. And that's where I think, regardless of how someone is hurt from church, to just remember that people are flawed, but God is not.
Yes.
And their mistake or your mistake is not God's mistake. And I didn't know that at the time. But, when I was going through that, I remember thinking, I just wish someone would tell me it was okay.
Yeah.
But I was so turned away from God in the moment that I didn't hear his voice. I wasn't connected. And I think that that's when you have that and then you pull away from it, it's like you don't realize how much you need it. And so to be guided from that voice now is a much different situation than when I was young and dealing with all that stuff in church.
That's powerful. You spoke to two things that I get asked all the time as a pastor, and one is women who are in abusive relationships, and they go, I can't leave. Fill in the blank. I can't leave. He'll kill me. I can't leave. He'll whatever. What would you say to that woman?
When you are in the container, you can't see how bad it is. I had so many friends that would tell me, at some point, you're going to want to change. We just don't know when that is. At some point, this might turn into a Lifetime movie, and we certainly hope that we don't have to go to your funeral. At some point, and I wish that we could somehow shorten the path from when this happens. I don't know how to do that. But at some point, whether it's someone watching or listening to this right now, or a year from now, or a month from now, at some point you'll realize that your life is worth it. It's worse than you realize, and God has got you.
Yes.
If I wouldn't have left, I wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have these books. None of this would have happened. All I could see was that this is what I know. And going outside of this, whether that person's going to kill you, they're going to try to take your kids, whatever it may be, going outside of that feels so scary to people because this is all they know.
Yeah.
And if that's you listening right now, I want to tell you that it is worse than you think, and you need to go quicker than you realize. Because on the other side of this, that's where you're going to have your massive growth. That's where you're going to start turning back to God and saying, I can't do this on my own. I need you. And when we think we can do it on our own, we won't move.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really important for anyone listening. Is it's most likely way worse than you think, and you've got to get out quicker than you know.
It's powerful. The other thing that I get asked, or or told at times, is on the topic of abortion, and women who have had abortions, and they go, they're in church, and they feel sad, they feel shame, they feel convicted, they feel whatever the feelings are that go with it, and I've said, and I just, I've said this, that obviously God's the giver of life. So we know, as I talked about last weekend, Psalm 139, how it says that God fearfully and wonderfully made us. Like, he's the one that gave life. We might have screwed up. My mama was 16. That was not on her. Wasn't on her plan. She got pregnant. My mom's grandma wanted my mom to abort me. My mom, and every situation is different. My mom grew up without a mom and a dad, so my mom wanted me. Like, I'm finally gonna have like my family, like I'm gonna have a husband and a child, and even though it's kind of messed up, like that's her thinking. But I think about this, and I've said this, like the good news is that God's the giver of life, and that baby that maybe we decided for whatever reason, we feel like we can't, we feel like we're too young, we feel like we're not prepared, we feel like, what am I gonna do? It's gonna ruin my own life. Like, so all these things. But the good news is that baby, life is eternal. So I'm just speaking to any woman out there who maybe has been through this, or you're going through it. Like, it'd be better to have this child, and if you can't keep your baby, like, adopt your baby. I have a child that's adopted, and that was the situation. She's the best thing ever, man. She's the best human. She's Jazzy. She's 15. But also, if somebody's gone through that child immediately went into the arms of Jesus Christ. Immediately, and just thinking about the way the enemy tries to manipulate us with guilt, with shame, with all these things, I'm also not a woman. I've also not been through having to make a decision, like a hard one. Like, that's a really hard one. What would you say to a woman right now? They're pregnant. That was not planned. They're like, I don't know if I can keep this child. I don't. What would you say to them? Because those feelings they're heavy.
They are. And if it's someone now, I would just share what I always wished I would have heard, which is, you can do this.
Yes.
It's going to be okay.
Yes.
It's going to be hard, but you've done hard things before.
Yes.
And we don't know why this happened, but we have to trust that it's for you.
Yes.
Like, again, it's also a fire, but that could be for you. It could be the greatest thing that you ever do. And if you don't, you're always going to wonder. And that's what I don't think they share enough with you. They don't tell you, you're always going to wonder, what if I did? And you're always going to regret it. And it might not be 2 years, 10 years, might be 20 years. But you're always going to think of it. It's always going to be there. And even if you somehow hide it as a way of surviving, that's okay. I did that too. I pulled up, I opened the car door, I threw up. Not because I was so stressed. It's like everything in my body was telling me not to do this.
Wow.
But somehow, this is also challenge of the strong mind. Sometimes your mind can override that.
Yeah. And
I just wept from the time I got out of the car. I wept the entire time I went in. I walked up to the steps. I did the counseling, could barely keep myself together. They still took me back. And I said, like, hey, is this normal? Like, that I'm like, is this normal? Is this because you don't know, right? Is this what everybody, does? Oh yeah, it'll be fine. This, it'll move past after.
Yeah.
Cried on the table, cried after. And then I was just like, you gotta get to work. You gotta stuff this. You gotta get to work. And it was literally like a mask that I wore for a really long time. And just so much guilt, so much shame. And so for the person listening that is realizing this is a mistake, it was a mistake for you. But I promise the greater mistake will be doing that and then wondering what if. I think that's the greater mistake. And I think in life we're all about mitigating risk. And so to me, the bigger risk is the one that you can't control. Of course, that would have been an adventure. And that would have been something that, yes, it would have been tough because I would have not been with the best person. But I'd been through hard things and I'd get through that too. And there are also people that if you don't want to keep that child, there are people that would adopt in a minute.
Yes.
So for that, but for the person that's been through it and is beating yourself up and is pulled away from God because you're just so ashamed and you can't even talk about it or share it with anyone, just like you said, like that baby's with Jesus.
Yes.
And God loves you too.
Yes.
And everybody has different sin and different shame.
Right.
That's just obviously a really big one that people like to focus on, but there's also other things that people do, And
I think the enemy likes to tell us whatever we did, that's the big one.
Yeah. Right.
Like that's the big one. And it's like, no, they're all bad. I mean, we're all sinners saved by God's grace. And, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no. Yeah,
I was just thinking about, I often think of it this way, like the devil is so good. In Genesis 3, it talks about how he's crafty. The serpent is crafty. God says, here's the garden. Like, don't take of this. What is he like? That's not what God really said. Eve, like, it's not what he meant. Like, and we do that. We all do that. I mean, I do it as a we all do that. We all go, I don't know if that's what God's words really means. Maybe I know that's what he said. That's not what it means. The Bible says, don't drink to get drunk, and I don't know. I mean, was it for today? Is that for yesterday? And then if you drink, people drink, they're like, well, I'm not getting drunk. I mean, I drink, but I don't get drunk. And you mentioned the word rationalize. It's almost like we tell ourselves rational lies, or irrational lies. And then we believe it. But part of that's coping mechanisms, it's like, when I think about John 3:16, which we all know, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. But he says, God so loved the world, which is you, which is me, which is that baby. Right. He loves us, that he gave because he loved us. But I'm thinking about the verse right after that that's often ignored, where in John 3:17, it says he did not come into this world to condemn the world. And I think, or in Romans, it says, for there is no condemnation in Christ Jesus. God doesn't condemn us, we do it. And the enemy, what Satan does is he minimizes the effects of sin, or the idea of sin. He minimizes it on the front end, like, that's no big deal. Right. It's not a big deal. That's not what he meant. You can do this. Yep. And then you do it, and then he maximizes it, and he goes, you idiot. You should be ashamed. You should be. It's
a great analogy.
You should feel so guilty. And every human being that's ever lived other than Jesus has all felt that. Yeah. So whether it's whether it's a lie, whether it's an affair, whether it's whatever it is, it's like we are all sinners saved by God's grace. Thank God we have a Savior. I want to end on a fun note. Okay. You just got married.
I did.
Yeah. I mean, he just seems like the best dude ever.
He is.
Yeah, Anthony. Yeah. Do you call him Tony for short?
No.
Tony the Tiger?
No.
No.
His dad's technically Tony, so we call him Anthony or Ant. Yeah. But no, yeah, so talk about that, and you said something earlier that sometimes we then keep ourselves, right? Like, so for me, like when we go through that painful situation, if you beat yourself up so much, you have so much shame and guilt, you're going to miss out on the blessings that God gives you.
Yes.
It's kind of like that analogy where someone's in a hurricane, right? And they're praying and praying for God to save them, and they bring a boat and they bring a helicopter, and the guy still sits there and drowns and says, God, I was asking you to save me.
Yeah.
And he's like, I sent you a boat and a helicopter, dude. Like, what do you want? And so for me, I think when we stick there, to me, that's that same analogy. Like, well, I made a bad decision. I'm divorced. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done this. Like, we then are missing out on all of the blessings that God's saying.
Yes.
You're forgiven.
So good.
It's okay.
Yes.
And I'm going to give you this gift, but you're so focused in your pain and your own damnation that you're avoiding what it is that he's giving you.
Right.
And so for me, it's like, it's a little bit of a full circle moment, because I did beat myself up for getting divorced. I beat myself up for these other decisions that we talked about.
Right.
And so for me to find somebody that loved me anyways, that knew like the worst of me and loved me anyways, and was like, but that's not you. Like, your decisions aren't always you. That behavior's not always you. And to have that love, if I wouldn't have gotten out of the relationship, if I wouldn't have done this scary thing, I wouldn't have the joy and the love and the peace that I have right now. Like, peace for the first time in my entire life.
Come on.
And so that to me is just like, if you're listening and this speaks to you in any way, you have to do the scary thing, the fearful thing, the big thing, in order to truly be able to grasp God's vision and goodness and blessings for your life.
Yes. You reminded me of Paul in Philippians 3, when he says, forgetting what is behind, I press toward the call. I press towards the call, the prize, high calling in Christ Jesus. And I think that's hard. That's hard for us to do. It's like, forget what's behind. I'm pressing. I'm straining toward what's ahead. And that's so good. Not living there, not staying there, not dwelling there, not remaining there. It's like, man, we've all done stupid stuff like that we'd rather not talk about on podcasts, to be quite frank. But like, but I think there's a responsibility and a stewardship also of what we've been through. Because for me, with The Fire Is For You, I could just not talk about it. Man, I went through hell. My wife went through hell. My kids went through hell. It was a very scary time. We could bury that. But if I bury it, who's that going to help?
Right.
I'm not going to bury it. So, we talk about purpose in our pain. Well, there's all these little sayings, God wants to turn your mess into a message, and your trials into triumph. And that is true. All of that is true. Paul said in 1 Corinthians 11, he goes and outlines all the stuff he's been through. He's like, I have been shipwrecked. I have been beaten. I've been whipped. I've been flogged. I've been, whipped with 39 lashes. I have been hungry. I've been thirsty. I've been cold. I've been hot. I've been naked. I mean, he's just, it's a rap sheet of I've been. Like, these are some bad things. And then he goes, that's why, for Christ's sake, I boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, because when I am weak, he is strong. And what you're doing by talking about those things, well, because I don't know people, everybody boasts about their strengths. Yeah. I'm a champion this, I'm a champion that, I'm successful in this, or we might want to talk about surface failures,
right? But
not personal failures,
right? Not
things that we freaking screwed up.
Yeah.
We don't, decisions that we'll go, yeah, my business failed, or yeah, that I tried to plant a church, it didn't work. But like to really get down into like that was not okay. But watch this. But I boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, because when I am weak, he is strong. And that's the fact, right? I mean, when you're weak, see, when we're always putting out like, look at me, look at me, look at me, you don't give God a chance to go, actually, look at me. I can take this.
Yes.
And Jeremiah, he talks about the potter and the clay. And God calls Jeremiah and he goes, go down to the potter's wheel. Jeremiah goes down and he sees this potter making a pot. And there's this one statement, man, it just resonates with me. It does, it hits. It says that the potter was making, a pot, and it says it didn't turn out as he had hoped. So he took it and he crushed it and made it into a lump of clay again and started over. And like, dude, come on. Like, how many times have I been a clay pot that didn't turn out like I hoped.
Yeah.
My marriage, my life, my family, my child, my situation. And thank God we have the potter that takes us and starts over.
And that's why I think if you just focus on, it's not your story.
Yeah.
It's his story.
It's great.
And for me, that's when I first talked a couple years ago about just the sexual abuse as a child. I was like, I don't want to talk about
I'm sure. Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. And then I got to talk about it over and over again.
Right.
I was like, I don't want to do that. And then I just felt like he said, but it's not your story to tell.
Yeah.
It's my story.
Yes. Amen.
And when you know that, that's when you can see redemption. That's when you can see hope. That's when you can end someone's suffering a little bit. And that's when I think that it's our responsibility to share. Because if you hold that inside, that one person or two people or whoever has a little less suffering because of it, that's selfish.
Yeah.
So for me, the more I get comfortable with it, as scary as it is and heavy as it is and not fun that it is, I'd certainly rather tell you about all my business success and the money I made and the investments that I've done. But like, really, what's that going to help people?
Right.
It's really not. It's not going to end their suffering. I mean, obviously, if you're having financial struggles, this is going to help you get out of them.
Of course.
But if you're still stuck in your stuff and you still are thinking that, oh my gosh, I did this and I made this mistake and I'm unworthy and God doesn't love me, and you're just going to turn even more away from him, you're missing the whole point of why we're here.
Yeah.
And so obviously my hope is this just give someone a little bit of ease in their own suffering.
This has been so good. I've had so much fun. And so what I've been doing for this Fire is For You collection is just that my guests, I've had them close in prayer. And so I think it'd be cool if you close in prayer and pray for those that are listening. They might be going through some of the similar things that you've gone through. And we know that James 5:16, it says that the prayer of a righteous person, in King James, it says it avails much. Like prayer is powerful. And so, Candy, would you do that?
Yes.
Would you close us in prayer? Awesome.
Father God, I just want to thank you so much for this time with Pastor Travis, and just thank you for what you're doing in every single person's life that is listening right now. Every listener, every viewer, God, I just pray that you give them the peace that only you can provide, that you allow them to know that you are their son, that they are your son, that they are your daughter, and that you are going to continue to move them through this fire or this struggle. And on the other side of it, you are going to show them that this was for them so that they can step into their highest calling and their highest purpose for you. And God, I just pray that every single person listening or watching, that they feel not only your peace, but your joy.
Yes.
And just supersedes everything that they can do on their own, God, that they have your favor in their life, that they are healed, that their trauma is minimized, that anything that they're facing, that they are going to have the strength, your strength, to get out of it. And God, we just ask all of this in your holy name.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Candy. Thanks for hanging with me today. Listen, if you have not yet picked up this book, you can pick this book up on any platform. Amazon's probably the quickest and the easiest. And also, if you do not yet follow Miss Candy on social media, follow her on Instagram. We'll drop that in the lower thirds below. I know that her life will bless your life. And so God bless you. Until next time, peace.